Welcome to yet another episode of Sacred Reviews. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Outlanders OVA, which was considered by some to be an 80s classic. So does this deserve the reverence of being an 80s classic, or is it mere garbage? Well, the answer to that question is rather complex and requires me to address the elephant in the room, at least for me. The elephant in the room is the fact that this OVA clocks in under an hour, which would be fine if this series was short, but isn't, and is comprised of 8 manga volumes that were brought to the US by Dark Horse Comics and sold as 34 issues. They're about 40 pages of length apiece. In short, this work contains in excess of 1,200 pages, and its full story can't be realized within the short runtime of the OVA, which leads to my biggest issue with the OVA. The short runtime requires numerous plot threads to be cut or merged, and very little content is added. In the end, though, this means the series loses a lot of its themes, like the struggle against an inescapable fate, and all the plot threads about the ancient civil war, the shell government on Earth, the political intrigue within that government, the real reason behind the invasion, and even most of the details about how the relationship between our male and female lead came about. In short, the work feels like its original soul has been almost entirely ripped out. The only aspects that were kept is the plot line about the political marriage to end the war, and all of the fan service of the original, and then some. In some ways, this leaves the story a fun little romp, but it lacks any of the stuff that made the original more than just boobies! As I said previously, much of the plot was cut out and heavily reduced in order to fit the short runtime. So the story quickly moves through events that mostly take place during the first half of the series, such as Tetsuya beating Princess Kam in a fight. That scene is then merged with a later event where Kam performs a translation spell by kissing him on the lips. Of course, all of the dialogue and events that take place in the original between those two events were cut out, so we can simply end up with Tetsuya being knocked out shortly after the kiss in the OVA. Afterwards, our male protagonist awakens to find himself in outer space and finds himself engaged to Princess Kam, who argues that their marriage could save the Earth on the grounds that their two peoples would then be allies. Of course, the Galactic Emperor rejects Kam's decision, orders Tetsuya to be executed. Of course, Kam's best friend comes to the rescue, and Loverboy rushes off to save Kam from the dungeon so they can run off and elope. Of course, even after making it to Kam's ship, the story has to end with a climactic final battle, which ends in a victory for those on Kam's side, and leads to the Emperor's acceptance, even if reluctant. On the whole, this story is far nicer in terms of tone, since the original ends with a lot of heroic deaths that leave little to celebrate in their wake, but it makes for a more realistic story than a single ship taking down an entire fleet. This is especially true when it isn't clearly explained how the victory was achieved, and the only solution I can offer is Deus Ex Machina. Outside of those little details, the OVA is largely comprised of sexual innuendo, fan service, or pillow talk either before or after sex. It's sort of a shame since it removes all the depth and struggle of the original and reduces the story to a mere fat material for the most part. Can you see why I have a problem with this OVA? On the graphics side of things, the series is highly dated to say the least, but it does deserve some slack considering its age. I'll be having a hard time judging the graphics here since I'm not particularly familiar with the 80s OVAs, and I have little ability at this time to judge the quality as a whole in comparison to other OVAs of the time. In short, the graphics are highly dated, but I can live with it. On the sound side of things, I'd recommend watching this subbed. The dub version, or at least the dub version you're most likely to get a hold of since it was redone in 2005, is part of a 20th anniversary release by the now defunct Central Park Media. Sadly, this dub makes several changes to the dialogue and completely changes the meaning of several of the scenes, and the first of these changes was within the first 5 minutes, and leaves my jaw on the floor with how stupid it is. So prepare to be stupefied in 3, 2, 1, 0.
Gum? You understand my language?
Apparently our languages are the same.
I hope I don't have to explain why that line was so amazingly stupid, since I prefer not to become associated with rant videos if I can help it. Suffice to say, I can't believe they'd actually changed that scene to say that she just happens to speak English. I mean, I can accept giant 700-foot tall biomechanical robots and ships, but there's no way I'm gonna just accept an alien princess speaks English out of the blue, and that's her native tongue. In closing, Outlanders OVA is a short but fun romp through the universe if you're looking for something that is less on the classy side of things and more on the crass side of things. But it's hardly a title that I'd call an 80s classic. It just seems too obscure and too low bar in terms of content to be worthy of such a title, or at least that's my 2 cents on the topic.